the Jayda InStitches show. It's March, which means it's time for the third installment in our 2023 Fair Isle style calendar blanket. And this month, we are continuing with the Fair Isle style concept. One of the key components to this sort of graph work is that your more recognizable shapes, like your snowflakes and maybe your hearts, are broken up by a repeating, tessellating mosaic image. This often runs right across the whole blanket or around the yoke of a sweater. So this month we're breaking things up with our tessellating tile pattern. You can use this particular pattern anywhere you want in the blanket, so you can repeat it a few more times if you like. This is a really nice interrupter and it helps add to that overall Fair Isle look. There's a couple of neat things about this month. I know some of you thought we were going to be doing a shamrock. Well, we're going to show you how you can turn this into a shamrock looking repeater if you want to do that. We'll have a couple of options for you in the sampler part of this video. Also, we're taking a break from the spools this month. You do not need to break your bee yarn into 6 different spools. We are just going to carry one yarn all the way through, so that makes things a little more easier. It's a lot more just counting stitches. There's really only 3 rows that repeat. They kind of go up and then go down. We'll talk all about that in the tutorial. Key for the yarn, you're going to want around 100 yards of A and 100 yards of B. If you're going to do the shamrock part, you might want around 120 yards of B. But that's all you need to know. So let's get on with the show. Let's grab our hooks, our yarn, our blankets. We'll head on over to the craft table and we will stitch up the Fair Isle style tile pattern together. For our tile strip, we are going to be using the same yarn we've been using all along. For me, that's a 100% acrylic size 4 medium weight. I've got my white, this is the background color. I want around 90 yards of it, and we have a break from the spools today. You're going to want around 90 yards of your color, your bee color. For me, I'm using a sort of a nice light Kelly green. And because this pattern is created to actually continue all the way across, it's actually easier to just carry a color and switch between the two without fiddling with the spools. So we don't need to use the spools this month. We are just carrying one color and it can be coming from a single source. And I'll explain a little bit more about that as we get into the video. You're going to want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and the same hook. A 5.5 millimeter, also known as an I or a 9, is the one I'm using. And of course you want your blankets. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. As usual, I highly recommend you make a sampler before you get started. It's a great way to get comfortable with the pattern and to figure out where the color changes are. It also gives you a nice idea of how different colors will look. So this is the pattern I'll be doing today. I've got open spaces inside of my mosaic framing, but if you wanted it to look more like a shamrock, since we are in March, then you can fill in the pattern of the 4 big spaces, and I'll explain that as we go, because there's actually a couple of rows where you don't even need to carry your A color because the whole row is B. So you've got like a whole row of A, a whole row of A, and you've got a whole row of B and a whole row of B down here. So that kind of changes things up a little bit. Of course, if you really want to get interesting, you can add in a color C. Now I would highly recommend using the spools again for this if you're going to be putting in a different color. This is gorgeous. This makes me think of a Portuguese tile, and I would just love to have a backsplash of that in my kitchen. We will be referring to the graph throughout. I'll also be giving you the stitch counts as we go, in case you're kind of listening to this as you crochet. Row 1 and row 11 are just like the previous 2 graphs. They are double crochet, only color A, no color changes. The color changing starts in row 2. And like the previous graphs, this one is mirror image, whether you're working top down or left to right. So if you're adding this to the bottom or to the top of your blanket, it doesn't matter which direction you go from, but I'll tell you which direction I'm working as we go. All right, I'm going to take my little safety pin out. That's my little stitch marker. It keeps my work from unraveling while I'm not working on it. that was the end of row 11 from the February graph. We're going to chain 2. Remember, the chain 2 counts as a double crochet. The chain 2 sits at the beginning of every row, and that first stitch that it comes out of is used by the chain 2. So we begin in the second stitch for each row. Another quick reference to the chart. Row 1, straight double crochet, all color A. There is no color changing to worry about, so just double crochet in each stitch all the way across with your color A. And I will catch up with you at the end of row 1 for the tile graph. Just a quick reminder, those are the first 20 double crochet. That is the equivalent of the first row of our graph. So if you're right-handed, you're working from here. This was your chain 2 and you're working this way. If you're left-handed, you're working from here. This was your chain 2 and you're working that way. And because we're repeating each graph 6 times all the way across, the first 20 stitches, no color changes. That looks like this. It's in alignment with the previous graph. And then it's just this repeat. So 20 more, 20 more, 20 more, etc. And because there are no color changing, the whole row is going to be color A. The last stitch of every row is worked into the top of the chain 2 from the previous row because that counts as a double crochet, so don't miss it. You should have 120 stitches in every single row. That is 6 full repeats of the graph. We chain 2, we turn our work. Row 2 is where we start with the color changes, and remember, we don't need the spools. We are just going to be working with one single ball all the way through. So we're carrying that color now the entire width of the blanket. Here we go. For right-handed, we're over here. This is our chain 2. For left-handed, you're over here. It's the same going either way though, so if you get confused, don't worry. Even if you read every single row going the same direction, it's a mirror image graph, so you're not going to get confused. The first 3 double crochet are in A, and then we change to B for the next 4. This chain 2 counts, so we have 2 more double crochet to do. So here we go. There's our first double crochet and our next double crochet. So there's our first 3 stitches of the row, all in A. Now what did I do wrong? I finished off that stitch. We want to work the first half of the stitch before the color change because we change it or we finish it with the new color. So I'm going to grab my new color. My ball of yarn is sitting on what I would consider the back side of my work, so it's going to stay there for this entire row, but because we're not juggling spools, this is a lot less of a worry because we're carrying it throughout. So here's my knot. I'm going to just finish off that last stitch, and I'm going to actually work over top of that little short tail. And remember, we're carrying the color we don't use. In this case, it's white or A. I'm going to just tug on A a little bit just to tighten it up. And now I'm going to do 3 or 4 double crochet using the new color, color B. I'm going to work the first half of that 4th stitch. So there's the first 4, that's half of the 4th stitch. I'm switching back to A. I'm going to carry B. I finished that stitch with A. The reason we're doing that is so that the next stitch, all the stitches have the right color sitting on top of them. Back to the graph. We have 6 in A, 4 in B, 3 in A, repeat. 3A, 4B, 6A, 4B, 3A, repeat all the way across. So we're going to do 6A now. We're carrying B. I'm going to just leave that little bit of tail. I don't like where that wound up, so I'm going to just take that out, pull it to the back, finish off that stitch again. There we go. Tighten it up. This is what I call tweaking. I will be sort of weaving that tail in later, but if I see something that looks a little amiss while I'm working, don't be afraid to take a stitch out and kind of fiddle with it, tighten up the previous color. This is how you get nice, neat, even color changes throughout. You kind of do a little bit of fiddling and massaging as you go. So here we go. 6 double crochet. I'm now carrying the B color. I'm crocheting with the white or the A. I'm going to work the first half of that 6th stitch, make sure I've got 6 there, pull gently on my color B just to make sure that it doesn't have any bunching coming out of the stitches, and I don't want to pull too tightly because I don't want to cinch the whole thing together, but just enough that there's no bunching there. I'm going to switch back to B, finish that stitch with it, tug down on A, and now I'm going to work 4 double crochet using B. Work the first half of that 4th stitch with B, switch back to A, I'm carrying B again, I'm just going to tug down on B. So there's 3A, 4B, 6A, 4B, and now 3 more in A, and that finishes off the graph. And then we repeat, and because there is just so much of this B being used all the way through, it is easier to just carry one ball of green or one ball of B color all the way through. So that represents the first 20 stitches of the graph. 3A, 4B, 6A, 4B, 3A, and now we repeat. 3A, 4B, 6A, 4B, 3A, repeat. That's what you're going to do all the way across for row 2, and I'll catch up with you at the end. When you get across to the end and you work your last 4 double crochet using B, drop the color. You don't need to carry it right to the end. Work those last 3 double crochet with your A color. And that last stitch is always worked into the top of the chain 2. And you should have a nice little repeating B, and those 4 sets of 4 stitches of B should be sitting pretty much on top of, sort of to either side of the middle 4 stitches of your hearts from the previous row. In particular, there should be 3 of A to start, 3 of A to finish, but it's 4B, 6A, 4B, 6A all the way across, or in sets of 20, 3A, 4B, 6A, 4B, 3A, repeat, 3, 4, 6, 4, 3, repeat. We are going to chain 2 and turn our work. I'm going to bring my B color to the front. So B sits at the front now. And I'm going to get all my colors out on the front of my blanket. And let's take a look at the graph. Row 3. For the lefties, you're over here. This was your chain 2. For righties, you're over here. This is your chain 2. We start with that chain 2. It's white. We immediately transition to B. So we're going to go 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, across, across, across. 1, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1. Repeat, or you start with a double crochet in A, in this case a chain 2. You'll finish with a double crochet in A, but the repeat is 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, all the way across. If you're doing the solid tiles, so you want this to look more like a little shamrock, you're just going to work 1 of A and then 8 of B, 2A, 8B, 2A, all the way across. So that's how your row is going to look for row 3. So that transition right up front, remember when you're moving yarn to kind of meet up with itself, we want to carry the A, we're pulling the B a little bit, double crocheting into that next stitch. I'm going to just pull on my A a little bit, and now I want to make sure I get that carried B. So 3B, and I'm just working over top of that carried little bit of B. Oops, I didn't want to finish that stitch. I want to instead switch back to A. I'm carrying B now. I'm going to work 2 in A. Oops. Finish that stitch. Catch up, Jada. Here we go. Now we work 2 in A, 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, all the way across. I start the first half of that stitch, drop A, I'm going to carry it, finish off that stitch, and then 3 in B. Always working the first half of the last stitch before the color change. Once I get into the new pattern, it takes me sometimes a couple stitches right at the beginning there. There we go. That is the first bottom of your sort of little tile shape starting to open up. We're going to go 2A, switching back to B. Actually, I think I want to go this way. Carry the A, 3 and B, finish that one, carry the B, 2 and A, drop that, back to B, 3 and B, one more in A finishes the graph, and then of course I would start all over again with 1A. So there's the 20 stitches that represent row 3 of the graph. You're going to repeat that all the way across. So basically it's 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, all the way across. You'll be ending with a single double crochet or 1 double crochet with your A color, but I'll catch up with you when we get there. We're nearing the end of row 3, and I just want to point out that this is the same as row 5 and row 7 and row 9. So if you need to refer back to this for those additional rows as we get to them, then this is how we end the row. For those of us who are making the open work like I am, you're just going to take your yarn, no matter what side it's on, of your B. So after you finish off that last stitch before the color change for your last double crochet of the row, which will be an A, you're going to make sure that you're sort of scooping up underneath that B, because you want to carry the B up. So you're sort of, see how it's sort of crossing, and as I go to wrap my yarn around my hook to make that last double crochet, I'm kind of catching the B. It's because I want to just have it ready to carry up here. See how it's now close to the top, and I'm not going to have this big line kind of dragging up. It's just a handy little thing. For those of you who are doing full sort of centers of the 4 open tile bits, so these guys, your row 4 and your row 8 are just exclusively B if you're doing the solid colors. So what you want to do to save A, because there's no point in carrying it all the way across when you're not going to use it, is just work your last double crochet in A, fasten off your A, join or just continue on with B all the way across, and then you're going to reattach A at the beginning of row 6 when you need it in here. So that is just a little, or I should say row 5 when you need it. So row 4 is going to be solid B for those of you who are filling it in. So you may as well just fasten off A and then reattach it for row 5 back here at the very beginning of the row when you need it. If you don't want to carry it all the way along. Otherwise, you're just carrying A for absolutely no reason, because this is a solid row of B if you're making the solid colors. For those of us doing the open work, we're going to be flip-flopping back and forth like we normally do. So let's chain 2. We are chaining 2 in B, so everybody is chaining 2 in B because B is what begins the row. We're going to just turn our work. So I'm going to get my yarn on the other side now of my blanket, so I'm back to it being over there. Make sure that I'm not tangling anything up. All my yarns should be on that side. I've chained 2 using B. It is row 4, right row over here, lefties row over here, 2 in B, 6 in A, 4 in B, 6 in A, 2 in B. So we're kind of flip-flopping now. There's the B starts the row and then we switch to A. So a little bit of a difference here. So we're going to carry A, and we're going to double crochet into the next stitch using our B color. But before we finish that stitch, we're going to switch to A. Then it is 6 double crochet using the A. We're carrying B. If you are doing the shamrock effect, you're just double crocheting all the way across with your B. So you can just sort of skip this whole row of instruction. There we go. Work the first half of that 6th double crochet using A, pull gently on B. I'm going to finish that stitch with B, and then it is 4B. So double crochet 4 times using B, carrying A, switch back to A, 6 double crochet using A, switch back to B, and then it would be 2 double crochet in B to finish off the graph, but of course it's going to be 4 if you continue. But let's just take a look at that first 20 stitches. So now we've got the open section of those 2 tile frames. If you're not changing colors and you want that solid thing, you're just going to work double crochet in B all the way across. But for the rest of us, that's what the first 20 stitches look like. So 2B to start, but roughly for the row across, it's 6A, 4B, 6A, 4B, 6A, 4B, all the way across. And I'll catch up with you at the end. We are nearing the end of row 4, so you should have a completely joined graphic running all the way across. I'm going to work the last half of the last stitch in A. I'm switching back to B, and I'm going to drop A where it is and finish off the last 2 stitches of the row in B. And there we go. So just to recap, that is really all the instruction you need, because now all the rows are kind of a repeat of each other. So row 2 is a repeat of, or I should say row 6 and row 10 are repeats of row 2. Row 3 is repeated the most. 3, 5, 7, and 9 are all the same. Row 4 is the same as row 8, and then of course row 11 is the same as row 1. So if you've frozen the screen on this graph image or the little one up here, you can just kind of repeat it by looking at the graph or looking down below you. So now we know we want to close in our little tessellating image again. So this is the row we just completed will be the one we're repeating now. So row 5 looks exactly like row 3, and then we'll be doing row 6, which looks exactly like row 2. And then you're going to just do that whole repeat once more before we do a solid row of double crochet. As you're working, make sure you're paying attention to any reach you might have. So for example, I am chaining 2 in A. I'm going to turn my work around. For those of you who did a solid row of B, you're just going to be joining A again now at the beginning of the row. You can join with a slip stitch and a chain 2, and then off you go. You're carrying your B. You've got 1 stitch to start in A. So here we are, righty over here, lefty over there. There's your chain 2, and then we're immediately into 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, 3B, etc. all the way across. Remembering, if you are making solid mosaic tiles, this is the one that's open, so you'll look like there's your A, 3B, or more like 8B, 2A, 8B, 2A all the way across. You're just repeating the row before, that was row 3. So that is all you've got to know. Make sure if you have to carry or pull a color over to start the row like this one, that now I'm going to do 3 double crochet using B. I want to make sure that I'm catching that carried color just so everything looks nice and neat and tidy. I can pull on that, just straighten up that side a little bit. So I'm making sure I'm covering that carried color. So there's 3B. I work the first part of that B, I switch back to A, and now it's 2A. First part of the second A, I switch back to B, and then 3B, and then back to A, 2A, 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, 3B, all the way across. And we are closing in our little mosaic pattern, and we are creating the little mosaic pattern in the middle. So this is sort of where that tile effect really starts to come out. And if you're filling in the 4 main sort of tile frames, you're going to start seeing, you should see the whole bottom of a shamrock appearing. But this little bit in the middle will still be open because you want to have a little bit of definition in the center. And once again, that's what it looks like all crocheted. So you've got your 4 shamrock leaves and then a little bit in the middle. Okay, I'm going to let you guys go. It's mostly just repeats of the rows we've already done. We're going to have that graph up there. You can freeze the video and just pay attention to the graph. If you need to go back and listen to any of those specific rows over again, you can just rewind to them. And I'll see you in a few more rows. I've just finished row 6, so I'm more than halfway through the graph, and I've got a complete tessellating tile pattern. So the tiles all join all the way across, and everything is a repeat. So this is a really simple repeating tessellating image. So you've got, just to recap, row 2 where we start changing color, it's 3A to start, but then it's 4B, 6A, 4B, 6A, 4B, 6A across. Row 3 is 1A to start, but then it's 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A across. Row 4 is 2B to start, but then it's 6A, 4B, 6A, 4B all the way across, unless you're doing the solid shamrock look, in which case row 4 and row 8 are all solid B. Then for row 5, we're back to a repeat of row 3, 1A, but roughly 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A all the way across. Row 6 is the same as row 2, 3A to start, but 4B, 6A, 4B, 6A all the way across. And then we're repeating again. Row 7 is the same as row 3, it's the same as row 5, 1A to start, but 3B, 2A, 3B, 2A all the way across. Row 8, 2B to start, but then it's 6A, 4B, 6A, 4B all the way across, unless you're doing the solid shamrock, in which case row 8 is all B. And then 9 is a repeat of 7, row 10 is a repeat of row 6 and row 2, and then when we get up to row 11, it'll be solid A all the way across. So just keep referring back to the little graph up here, remembering that the rows are basically repeats of each other, and if you get lost, you just have to look below. So you know now that if you've got 4B here, the next row should be a repeat of this one, because now you want to start to tessellate back out again. So you can also look back at your other work. And you'll know that you're doing the right thing by looking at the centers of your little tessellating images. They should all be 2, 6, 2 in white. It's easy to look for that little cross section, 2, 6, 2 in white all the way across, or A, whatever your A is. And you're just going to repeat this again. So row 2, row 3, row 4, row 3, row 2. You can kind of look at it like that. I'm going to go ahead and do one more full repeat of that tessellating pattern, and I'll catch up with you for row 11. I've just completed row 10 of the graph repeat, so there is an unbroken tessellating tile pattern all the way across. Because that's the end of my requirement of my bee, I can cut my yarn now and just get it out of the way. I'm going to leave myself a longish tail so I can weave it in at the end and not worry about it coming undone. And for row 11, just like every other graph, chain 2, turn, chain 2 counts as a double crochet, and we are nothing but color A all the way across. So double crochet in every stitch. You should still have 120 stitches at the end of every single row. And we're on the home stretch. That is row 11 complete. I am not changing colors because my A continues all the way through my blanket, but I will take out my hook and put in my little safety pin that will keep it from unraveling on me as I put this aside until next month. And now I'm just going to go in and weave in all of my little short tails. If you used a slippery yarn, remember you might want to give it a little tiny knot around a couple of similar colored yarn loops before you weave it in back and forth. Some more fun ideas if you really like this tessellating tile and you want to repeat it again. Something else you might want to consider, you can always work it off the bottom of your blanket too. So if you wanted to put in a full stripe before January or after December, you can work this stripe off the bottom of the blanket because it's a perfect mirror image going left to right or up or down. It doesn't matter where you add it. So if you want to elongate your blanket, this is a nice option. It looks fabulous in different colors too. And I can't wait to see yours. So, I hope you enjoyed working the March Fair Isle tile pattern along with us this month. And keep those pictures coming to our Etsy shop. A lot of you have been sharing versions of your blanket with us at the Etsy shop. You don't even need an Etsy account. You just pop over to our shop. The link will be down below in the description box. You can click on message owner. There's a little tiny icon in the top right hand box. Looks a bit like a landscape painting or something. Click on that. It'll allow you to upload a video and you can share your blanket patterns with us. And I get to see what you guys are doing. The colors, sort of the order you're doing them in. It's been so much fun seeing everybody's version of this blanket so far. So keep them coming. We will see you soon here on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and enjoy the rest of March, everybody. Bye!
Hi, everybody. Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.